I thought it'd be fun to do a top 5.
Okay. Yes. So let's do our top 5. And should we tell them we had different ideas about what the top 5 would be?
This is a full peek behind the scenes episode. Everything is behind the scenes.
I think we should do your way first and be spontaneous.
No, I can't. I can't.
Yes, you can. You can do it. You can do it.
Okay. Well,
Great pressure.
No, I want to do what we planned first because I won't be able to do the other way.
Okay. We'll do my way first, and then we'll do your way.
Oh, okay. Well, folks, we wanted to end this episode with reminiscence about our favorites. Now, I had planned to do a top 5 activities, as Aubrey was hinting at, and she had a different, perhaps better idea where we would say different things we liked about different activities. So, I tell you what, I'll ask you a question, and you tell me what you think. Okay, I want you to give me an activity you couldn't wait to see our members do from the year. Ooh, look at all these beautiful...
Well, there's so many. Really, there's so many. But one of the activities that I couldn't personally wait to do, and then I was so excited about, I couldn't wait to see our members do, came actually from our mushroom theme. It was the spore prints.
Which is what Tedley mentioned.
Was mentioned at the very beginning.
Cool.
I know. I heard that and I was like, yes, me too. I'm so glad you enjoyed that, Tedley. So yes, this activity is where our members took a portobello, or really any mushroom, and you put it on a piece of white paper. You put a jar over it, or a bowl.
Something.
Leave it there for just a few days, and then you lift up the mushroom very carefully, and it's like an amazing.
Yeah, it's left these prints.
The spores actually fall down, like not just a few spores, though, David. Thousands.
I remember.
Thousands and thousands of spores fly out of this mushroom onto the paper and create the image of the underside of the mushroom.
It is very cool.
Spectacular.
It's not something you usually see either. I mean, they're so teeny tiny, and they're out in nature, and they just like fall in the grass or the mud or whatever. Yeah. You're not going to see them. So it's cool. And also it matched really nicely to the parts cards, which included the spores. All right.
I think it's also amazing that this is an activity that you can do just by going to the grocery store and getting, it's the most simple thing you can do that most of us have never tried before. I mean, usually our mushrooms just sit in the fridge, right?
Totally. But no, in fact, they are capable of making art.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Well, I will ask you the same question. What is an activity that... what's an activity that you were excited to see our members do?
Well, it comes from cave. It was the Make a Cave. The activity in here where people it was called A Cave is a Cave for Me.
Okay.
And basically you get to take a little box and you make a cave from it and decorate it. And we had some little pictures that you could decorate it with, and we suggested lights. And I loved seeing all the different caves that our members made.
It was actually really cool.
And I would bet anything that we still have some caves floating around in rooms and bedrooms or other.
They also, a lot of them reinvented those caves for stellar.
That's right.
By instead of imagining that they were the bioluminescent glowworms, they imagined now it's a starry sky,
right.
And they added galaxies to the top.
Yeah, so I was really excited to see, and I was not disappointed to see those caves come to life.
I know.
Okay, are you ready? All right. You do a lot of the research here, and so I'm really curious about this because I don't know I know the question, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
What is an activity that as you developed it inspired you to learn more? Like as an adult, you were like, oh, I want to know more about that thing.
It was. I mean, actually, there were a lot of things. I learned a lot about mountain goats from climb. Things that I think you remember me researching mountain goats, going like, "Wow, I didn't know that a goat could actually stand vertically on a mountain." Right?
Yeah, that's
but
right.
The thing probably that I had to do the most research was from our tiny unit. It was studying those water bears, those little tardigrades.
Yeah.
For the parts of a tardigrade, and just learning about how awesome water bears were. And I was so inspired that I wrote a whole poem about them.
Yes.
Called Little Water Bears Are Surprisingly Awesome. A catchy title.
And a descriptive
A
title.
catchy
for sure.
title if one has ever heard of a catchy title.
That's right.
I know. It's really, really cool. Oh, and it ended with this. Mini survivor brings us lots of hope. Frozen over 30 years, thawed in the microscope. That actually is real. And I wrote that because like I was just stunned. You can freeze a tardigrade for 30 years and then thaw it and it starts moving its little legs. It just blew my mind.
The diversity of life.
Yeah. All right, so what is it for you? What was in our themes that made you inspired to actually learn a little more about that subject area, or just made you curious?
Yeah, it was the Shinrin-yoku, which...
Shinrin-yoku.
That's right.
Am I saying that right?
I don't know, but it means forest bathing.
Means forest bathing,
in English we would
yeah.
say forest bathing. And I knew a little bit about forest bathing already, but it was wonderful to kind of dig deeper into it. It's a real thing, you know. And they've done all kinds of studies, and so it was interesting to read about the studies they've done with this idea that you go out and you bathe in the forest, and it really has a significant mental healing effect.
Yeah.
In fact, I think one of the things they found that during the pandemic, when people felt really housebound, I know that even here in California, they closed a lot of the outdoor areas. And you really felt that. It really had a deleterious effect on our mental and emotional health. And it just speaks to the power of nature. And humans are biological creatures. We need to commune with nature. And there's this practice, and it's validated by research that actually you really need to do it. And so I was fascinated by that. Okay, what is an activity, this is number 3, that was more complicated to design or write?
An activity that was more complicated to design or write is from our bounty theme. It was actually the native produce by continent theme.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. This one gave us all kinds of trouble. Okay, I'll tell you why. It's because, and we even were working with Bounty from a previous version of Bounty where we had already had brainstorm lists and a kind of a prototype of pre-selected research that we had even been doing with Carrie back long ago, back in 2020 or 2021. And we had to go and I just remember like re-researching, and it was just this rabbit hole where I felt like I could not win exactly like where these things came from. And so like you're researching something like, what is the native produce from Oceania? And I can't remember what was come up with. Oh, or some of those, some of the produce that is now all produced in the Caribbean islands, like that all came from different places. And so doing this research, it was just like one rabbit hole information jump after another. Like actually, this plant actually came from this particular region over here, but and actually it was brought over by this region over here, and so it really did make you. I think by the end of that research, it made me kind of feel like giving up in a way, like who cares? Like it was all Pangea once, like long ago. All these continents are all mashed together, and like okay, so a version of this grows in this area, a version of this grows in this area, and it kind of it was kind of like. I don't know. And then even afterwards, we still had members kind of jumping in with like, I think this is actually the wrong kind of, wrong picture for this particular kind of produce. And so I know you had trouble finding the pictures of these particular kinds of produce. And I had trouble figuring out if they actually came from the continent that we thought that they came from. But the truth is that, in the real time when our members were actually working with these, our members were really excited. Like the layout of this activity, just seeing like the bounty of produce that our world like creates and the variety of different kinds of fruits and vegetables and tuberous roots that we eat is just so interesting to look at in a great big layout. And so it turned out to be really great and really fun and enriching. And I think the children learned a lot. I certainly learned a whole lot. But yeah, it was a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. I was like, oh yeah, we could do produce by continent. And I was like, wait a minute. Colonialism what? And like, and then again, like, by the end,
this
like,
type of banana-shaped
it's all
thing is
one
actually
world. Yeah.
slightly bigger.
We all are citizens of the earth. Like,
well, mine it actually is very similar. It was from Cave, and it was these adorable and frustrating.
Right. And this came right off of Bounty too.
Bats, finding high quality, usable pictures of all the different types of bats.
It turned out to be so much harder.
Huge endeavor.
I know, and we really struggled with that one because it was so easy for me to. That was one that I didn't have to do a lot of work to write. I was like, yeah, we'll do different parts of bats.
We'll have this bat. We'll
like,
have this bat.
So I picked all the bats, and then I gave them to David in a list with the descriptions of all their different features and everything. Right?
Yes.
And here they are, and then we had to go through more than one version of what the cards would look like because you struggled so much to find pictures of these particular kinds of bats in ways that would illustrate the differences between them. I mean, it kind of highlighted for us like the limitations that we are in as publishers. So maybe like as a homeschooler, if I were going to go and recreate this activity for my own kids, I just grab whatever pictures I want from the internet. It's not matter. I'm not going to sell them or anything. But because we are publishing them, we pay so much attention to like, what do we have the copyrights to? What can we find legit? And you in particular, you are really particular about making sure that the images that you're pulling are like from the same perspective. So if we're going to do bats, like having a bat like this and a bat like this and a bat with just like the face, it doesn't feel like good design.
No, because we want the kids to see them in kind of in similar ways so that they can think about the bat.
Think about the differences between them.
It's pedagogical.
Yeah, so that one was really hard.
It was. All right. Now, let's talk about fun.
Okay.
What's an activity that we did this year that you were like, I wish my kids were little again? Because we have teens, and these activities are really, we have 2 to 9-year-olds in mind, and they're still fun, but some of these would be like, I wish I had I wish my kid was still 4.
Yeah.
So what's one of those that you wish?
Or 7,
or something.
whatever it is. For me, it was like, there was no contest with this question. It's hands down the makerspace from Invent.
Yeah, and I know that was a big winner for a lot of folks.
It was a big winner. I mean, for me, like my memories of homeschooling our kids, I'm just going to try and locate it here. My memories of homeschooling our kids were less like, my less sparkly memories were about the Montessori materials and the cards, although those are great. My most sparkly, nostalgic memories all center around what they did with cardboard, and it is hard to describe the enormity of shredded cardboard that existed in our house for like a span of 5 years. I mean, I'm not kidding. David would come home from work and he'd be like, "What happened to the house again?" And there'd just be like springs and wheels and cardboard bits and scissors and hot glue and, just like all over the living room, over and over and over again. And that's because our kids just really enjoyed that kind of the creative process, So all kids are different. That one just in particular was really sparkly memory for me. Yeah, and very, very nostalgic. So I loved seeing the things that our members were creating in the community. And, that time has passed for us. Our kids are teens, and they spent many, many years in cardboard boxes. And they really don't seem to have the desire to get inside a cardboard box anymore and pretend that it's a ship or to make something from it in the way that they used to.
That's right.
But I know that the things that they learned from being in that kind of messy makerspace was really impactful for them.
Yeah, they still express that creativity or that inventiveness, but in just different ways.
How about you?
It is for sure. It was the animals of the savannah from Giant, not because.
See, that is one I would have thought to pick.
Yeah,
it's so interesting.
Yeah, it's not because the animals of the savannah activity itself sparks a memory. That's a categorizing activity.
Oh, now I know why.
Yeah, it's because our kids were really into cubbies, and we had a whole selection of little stuffed stuffies, the stuffed tiger lions. There was Daddy Lion and Mommy Lion,
cheetahs,
and Cubby 1 and Cubby 2 and Cubby 3 and Cubby 4.
Daddy Cubby, Mommy Cubby,
yeah,
and the baby cubbies and the grandma cubby.
And there was
there was an Uncle Lion.
I would tell them stories at night using the cubbies, and so it's just a lot of wonderful memories. And also, when we still like to go to the zoo occasionally, but when they were little, we loved going to the zoo, especially when we lived in Washington, D.C., and our oldest was very little, and he was 3-4 years old, and we would go to the National Zoo and look at all the critters. And I have such wonderful memories of him being a little guy, just the kind of age that would be starting to learn about animals of the savannah and going to the zoo in Washington, D.C. And so the cubbies plus that really tickled my nostalgia strings.
Aww.
Whatever you want to say, the heartstrings.
All right, well, last one, and
Okay.
then we've got to go. So we're talking about our favorite cover designs.
Yes.
And I would love to know if any of you out there have a favorite cover design. David does all of these from scratch. So that is something fun to know, is that they're all original. Do you have a favorite in mind? I know you do.
I have one. I think, I have a couple. Because we're always trying to do something different. So I'm always trying to vary the art style. I'm not a trained designer. I've been into art and visual art for basically my whole life, but I'm not a trained designer. I'm a trained educator. And so a lot of it is learning as I go and trying to be experimental with kind of different techniques. And Farm is one that I really, really love because he's such a cute little pig. It looks like he's on a little crate, and I love the way the colors came out. The other one that I liked, if I had to pick another one, and I will because it's my show, is I really like Giant. I thought the elephant came out really cute. I loved the way that I was really pleased with how the line art came out on this guy as well, and the colors. So those are two that I'm pleased with. I could also tell you the ones that I will never do again if I had to, but we won't talk about that because it's too sad.
Is that right? Okay, well, I'm gonna pick two as well.
Oh,
you got two. I also will. So Pigment.
Oh, okay.
I actually really love it. I remember when you were working with the prototype. It's kind of a different design than you were going with, kind of like a sketchbook type of design. And I remember the first version you gave me were like different colors than we talked about it, and you changed it to the colors of the rainbow. I remember your first version was one of those that was like, I see what you're going for, but like, it's a rainbow. And then you changed the colors like to be the colors of the rainbow, and it's like, I love this now, it's my favorite. Do you remember that moment?
I don't,
the moment when I was jumping up and down with joy in our living room, like, you did it, it's so good, I love it. You don't remember that moment?
I don't, but I'm glad. That was not one of my favorites.
No,
it didn't come together the way I had hoped, but it is.
So good.
The idea is there. It's black and white and like to be painted.
It's cute.
All right, that's one.
All right, and I guess my second, which is really, really hard, is actually Back to Invent.
And actually, this is Theo's favorite as well.
Is
apparently.
it? Theo, you and I are in sync on this one. I love that.
Says they cut and pasted it to the front of Theo's idea book. That's so beautiful. Thank you.
That's a great idea. I can see that.
Thank you for sharing that too. Yeah. That means a lot to me.
Well, this was, I felt like you were getting more inventive with your design style here. When I saw these floating inventions spinning around the light bulb, I just found it really inspiring. It was cool. What? Yeah. I know. I love it. I love the colors. I know our printer didn't do a really great job. I don't know if you can tell that here on the video. This one we need to reprint because our printer was running out of ink when we printed it. But I just think it's really beautiful with the spinning inventions.